the noises. Okay. Trying to make a YouTube video here, pal. What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. Yeah, you're going to hear some noises, maybe see a bird fly by or two. I'm in Hawaii. I'm on vacation, but I found time to watch the first 2 episodes of Lord of the Rings to bring you all a review. This is spoiler-free, right? We're not talking any sort of detail in this video. And again, I apologize for the quality, but the wife's sleeping there. I'm stuck on the balcony, but look at the view. It's a lot better than Mordor. So The Rings of Power is an epic drama set thousands of years before the events of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. It follows an ensemble cast of characters both familiar and new as they confront the long-feared re-emergence of evil to Middle-earth. And like I said, clearly this is a more casual review, but I do want to dive into why I was hesitant for this series, right? I saw the trailers and I enjoyed the first one, but there was something about this that wasn't fully capturing what we know from Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy. And even looking at the Hobbit movies, I know they overly utilize the CGI, and I'm not even a huge fan of all 3 films, to be honest with you. Those were a disappointment, but they still have that magic. You can go back, watch them, love the characters, and appreciate the journey, even if the journey is a bit lengthy. Should have been 2 films instead of 3. But you look at this series and the opportunity to expand upon the lore, go back in time, and bring us some characters that are interesting, some acting that is really good, and just not mess up the lore. We don't want them to compromise what we already love about 3 of my favorite movies of all time. So that was my biggest fear going into this, and honestly, my expectations were low, right? I was excited, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if they can do it justice. And look, I'm only 2 episodes in. I can't speak to what is going to happen after what I've seen, but I can tell you that this Lord of the Rings series is at least epic, visually stunning, full of interesting characters, and I'm actually really interested to see where it goes after 2 episodes, and that's probably the best thing I could have imagined myself saying after watching it. Let me tell you my biggest fear real quick with this series, just after seeing what I have seen, right? We're introducing a lot of stories. There are 3 to 4 distinct storylines going on. You can tell they're all going to come together at a point, right? Episode 1 starts us out with a ton of exposition, a big voiceover from who I perceive to be our main character, speaking upon the great battle with the elves in Middle-earth, setting us up to get excited for what is to come. And not diving into detail, but she tells us how the war left Middle-earth ruined. These are things we know, and we get a lot of things we know as the series goes, right? Easter eggs, some words, some phrases that you will recognize, especially if you're a hardcore fan of Lord of the Rings. Now, for more casual fans, I'm not entirely sure if this is going to get you overly excited after seeing what I have seen, but the characters are so different and distinct compared to the original movies that maybe you can get something out of that and be on board for this journey, because there are a couple of things that are set up, especially at the end of episode 2, that have me like, okay, I think everyone can at least get excited for what this journey or multiple journeys is going to be. But that's probably my biggest hesitation, is there's just a lot going on right now after 2 episodes. And there was even some hesitation that I saw on Twitter from the first reactions, like, I don't know who the main character is, and I kind of feel the same way, because there are 2 storylines I can look at right now and say, okay, no, that's the main character, or is that the main character? Now, both of these stories are interesting, and I'm so curious to see where they go, but there is a bit of a lack of focus with this series, and that's one thing I hoped it would stay away from, because there's so much going on. Really, there's so much story to tell. That's why the exposition, the obvious exposition in episode 1, didn't bother me as much, because you have to kind of get an idea as to what is going on, especially if you're more of a casual fan. And for those hardcore fans, beyond what I mentioned with the Easter eggs, there are some locations here, some visuals, being able to soak all of this in. Now, this has to be watched on the biggest screen possible. I understand it's a series. I know Cinemark, they were doing those premieres. If I were you all and I watched it on a television-sized screen, I would go see it in the theater, because this is one of the more visually stunning series I've ever seen, like in my life. They put a ton of money into it, one of the highest budgeted shows of all time, and it shows, and that's really good. I was also curious, is this going to fall more on the side of Lord of the Rings with practical effects, or are we going to overly utilize that green screen, the fake-looking CGI? Thankfully, we do not go overboard with that. Now, it's there, it's prominent. There are so many moments throughout the first 2 episodes where you can kind of see that they're in front of a green screen, but it never truly compromised the experience, and you can tell most of it is on location with the beautiful set design and even the more claustrophobic areas. There's one moment where we go into this underground sort of a location where elves and dwarves are together. That for me was so incredible because, no, it's not spectacular to look at, but the attention to detail on these sets, it's just ridiculous. Beyond that, the score. Oh my God, it adds so much, right? Episode 1 is full of these sweeping shots, the cinematography, just establishing where we are and where these characters are located. Yeah, those are amazing. But behind that, you have the music that is keeping us, and who is drilling? Is someone drilling? The music's keeping us engaged, and even if you're not like completely on board with these characters, and we'll talk about characters here in just a second, on a technical level, this is everything I wanted it to be, and I didn't really have any hesitation there. I just didn't want it to feel more like The Hobbit, where they're just going overboard with the CGI and the green screens. So far, they haven't done that. Now, we haven't been introduced to too many of these crazy CGI creatures, one in the first episode, but it honestly looked pretty good, and we're talking television show. It doesn't even feel like a television show. It feels like a big budget movie. There's 2 characters I want to talk about. I can't dive into detail in this video. I can't really go into any sort of specifics, but Galadriel and Nori. There's also a group of dwarves that we're semi-focused on, we get to introduce to a bit later into episode 2, but those are the main 2 that are kind of fighting for our attention, right? And you can tell at a point they are going to intersect. It hasn't happened yet. My curiosity and really my hesitation with this show is whether or not they're going to come together seamlessly, because after 2 episodes, you just can't tell. My other big hesitation with these 2 episodes is I haven't found that character. Now, Galadriel, she is fascinating. I'm so excited to see how her emotions from what happened with a certain character in her life, how that continues to play into the next few episodes, and there's so much there with her that we haven't explored yet. We haven't been able to peel back those layers. I just haven't found that attachment that I did with the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, being able to get on board with these characters immediately, because you know in those movies, you started to love these characters within 5 to 10 minutes, and I am on board. I am somewhat emotionally connected, but I don't quite feel the same way yet. Now, again, only 2 episodes, but I'm so interested to see how they continue to build the characters that they've established and tie it all together. It's a tough task. I don't know if they can do it, but if they can, then Lord of the Rings is going to pay off. But that's something that I even noticed all the way back in the trailer. I'm like, there's just a lot going on. Is it going to pay off? Just those great Lord of the Rings lines too, like, this place is so evil, our torches don't give off any warmth. Things like that. They happen so often throughout the first 2 episodes, and they throw you back into that world. And, you know, doing a good job overall this series, getting us back into Middle-earth and getting us, you know, kind of hooked onto the world, maybe even more so than the characters. I need those characters to catch up to what they've done with the world building. But again, if they can, then we have a really successful series here. Before I give you my final thoughts, thanks again. It's a vlog-style review. I don't ever do anything like this, but I'm on vacation. I'm doing what I can. Hopefully the wife's having a good nap, and we can go eat some seafood later, because, man, I love me some seafood. Episode 1 and 2 of The Rings of Power features incredible visuals, a strong story with Galadriel, and some necessary exposition. The storylines are interesting, but it does feel like there is a lot going on. Regardless, this series is impressive so far. Let's see what happens. I can't score this yet, but I will be scoring it at the end of the season after I see everything. So I need your all's reactions and responses to the first 2 episodes. Would you like to see some spoiler talk from me? There are some things that I want to talk about, some epic scenes, very specific scenes that I would love to be able to have a little bit of a discussion for. So let me know those things down below. Thank you all for sticking with me, allowing me to do this, and giving me motivation enough to do this on vacation. Birds are chirping. I'll be back very soon, but I have some things to do here first, like eat seafood.